So obviously, you guys, we've all dealt with burnout specifically, but what are some of the things you can do to prevent getting to a place where you are burnt out? Gina brings up a really good point, and setting boundaries is probably one of the biggest things that I think can help specifically with preventing getting to that place, and just understanding, what you can accomplish in a day's time and what you probably can save for the next day. So one of the biggest things, especially early on in my career, that I struggle with was just understanding, um, what is that word specifically? Understanding how to prioritize, and understanding what needs to be done and what can wait. I think, yeah, being open and talking with other people that you're working with about that stuff and setting expectations is probably one of the best things that you can do early on, just to understand that. But for me, setting boundaries and was a huge thing to help preventing burnout specifically. But any other things that you guys would recommend, or any advice that you can give people to help prevent even getting to that place?
I think something so simple that I often forget and I'm totally guilty of is just taking breaks throughout the day. And Learn really kind of reminded me that I needed to do that, because during Learn I think you take a break every hour, maybe every hour and a half. And that was definitely a change from my previous career, because I would sit there working just so stressed out all day, staring at the screen and barely ever take a break. So it's important. And my old boss, she was actually really cool, even though I did get burned out from that job, she did this thing called the Pomodoro method. And it's you can have like a little timer or something, to set a timer on your phone and maybe work for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. And you know that you have a specific task in mind that you want to get done in that amount of time. And then after that, you get to take a break. And so that also has really helped me, just because you kind of are motivating yourself by like working against the clock, and it makes you a little bit more productive as well. So
Yeah, it's that tomato timer, right? I'm gonna post a link in the chat too, if you guys are not using that. That's a nice, quick and dirty like desktop app that you can check out. But the tomato timer is great. I think, there's some other really like uncool things that for me just seem kind of cool that I think Learn helped with. So for example, like with Learn, we had, and even in my internship at NotJ, which was fantastic, but like one of the things that really helped out with just work projects was using a Trello board, and using a Trello board and a Kanban method to see where all the components to a certain project were and what was happening. So I really liked that concept, but I liked it enough that I was going to adapt it for myself. And so I created my own Trello board for just everything that I was doing. So I have a full-time job. I do work on extracurricular projects, but I also have a life. Like I go surfing, like I bike, I try to do as many things as I possibly can. But I absolutely need a Trello board for that, to organize my life. And that's really important. And having that, me nerding out on weekends and saying, okay, well, I'm going to hook this up to my calendar now. So it's on my phone and it's on my computer. So my Trello board never leaves me. And I know what I'm doing every single day. That helps. It's an uncool method to do, and it's a little bit tedious to build, but it does help a lot. I think the other thing I have done lately that's been really helpful too is starting a journal. So I have Notion as my journal right now, but the journal does two things. Number one, I have a set of like end of the day questions that I ask myself, just so I know what I've been doing the rest of the day, and I can sort of wrap it up and say, okay, I'm done with that. But at the same time, like I also keep the journal open in case I have ideas of my own. So one of the things that like really drives me nuts is if I don't make promises to myself to keep some of the ideas that I had throughout the day and use them later on. I think that's really kind of inspiring when you have a really great idea, but then, and then you write it down. Like if you don't write it down, that idea, at least for me, is gone in 2 seconds. So for me, it's knowing kind of what you need, and then being able to sort of help yourself out with whatever tools or strategies or principles you want.
Yeah, one of the things that I also want to add to all of this, because it's something that I'm really bad at and I'm trying to get better. Like I'm really good at taking the breaks, going for walks, doing my usual daily things to relax. But personally, I find that if I've been really pushing to hit a deadline, or I've been in a crunch period, I'm really bad at, once it's done and the release is out, just doing something nice as a reward. Take a Friday off, or do a spa day, or something. Just do something relaxing because it's over. I think that's really important.
Say not getting too invested in outcomes as well, but appreciating the whole journey, because at Learn especially, and then also right after, just when you're learning so much, there's, you're banging your head against the wall, you can't figure out the problem, it's driving you crazy, and there's that low of like, I can't get this, I'm never going to get this, followed by you getting it, and it's that super high of like, yes, I'm a god, I'm a hacker god, and then the very next line of code fails and you're like, wait, what? And then you go down again. So just understanding, like watching the entire journey, knowing it's going up and down. And because even though you have those highs bringing you back up, just the discrepancy is just exhausting after a while. So finding an even keel is super tough, but that helps a lot.
I think that's a quote we should hold on to, Sarah and TJ, and working with students. I'm a hacker god. That's awesome.
One other thing I'd like to add that I didn't add in the beginning. If you're working in a company where you have a manager, absolutely try to keep an open dialogue as much as you possibly can with your manager. Let your manager know how you're doing. If they need to play interference and say, hey, I've got too much on my plate, they can do that. If you're burnt out, just let them know and let them take days off. So for example, 2020 was not the easiest for everybody. And especially, I had one coworker who came to me and it was just kind of like, the life is basically falling apart, like right before her eyes. And she needed time off. And so we had to work as hard as possible to make that time off. To get her to take that time off, because we didn't want her to feel guilty when she took the time off. Like a lot of people sort of feel guilty when they take time off, and then when they get back, they seem to have like a ton of emails, and so then they feel guilty about taking the time off, and they don't want to take time off later on. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we were just making sure that she had the tools in place to take the time off and not feel bad for doing it, and then not feel like she had to rush back in at any point in time. Like, I think if you find companies that are like that, and you find managers that are like that, hold on to them, because that's a really useful tool.
It's a great point. Awesome.